Welcome to lecture number 19 of the course. In lecture 16 we started stability. So in lecture number 16 and 17 we studied about the basics of the stability and about the swing equation, and in lecture 18 we derived the formula for the swing equation, as well as we discussed what is equilaria criteria. We also discussed what is critical clearing angle and what happens if we remove a fault after the critical clearing angle, what will happen to stability. And also we derived the formula for calculating critical clearing angle as well as critical clearing time. So in this class, let us solve few problems related to stability. The first problem is a very basic problem. It is actually with this problem we will be able to recall the formulas which we derived previously in the lecture numbers 17 and 18. So let us start with the first problem, which is a very basic problem. Then the second problem will be a journal problem. So in the first problem I am saying that the question problem is like that: a 50 Hz 4-pole turbo generator rated 100 MVA, means rating of the machine is 100 MVA, and 11 kV is the operating voltage. And this turbo generator has an inertia constant of 8 megajoule per MVA. Remember, we have two constants, M and H. Sometimes M is also called as inertia constant, as well as H is also called as inertia constant. So you can see the units here. Units are megajoule per MVA. So megajoule is the kinetic energy stored and MVA is the rating of the machine. So megajoule per MVA means we are given the H constant here. So what we have to calculate? Calculate the stored energy in the rotor at synchronous speed. So at synchronous speed we can easily calculate. H is given to us and rating of the machine is also given. We can calculate the kinetic energy, because we know H is equal to nothing but kinetic energy at synchronous speed divided by rating of the machine in MVA. Rating is given and we have to calculate the kinetic energy at synchronous speed. So you can use this formula. The second part is if the mechanical input is suddenly raised to 50 megawatt for an electrical load of 30 megawatt. Find rotor acceleration, neglect mechanical and electrical losses. Obviously, as long as mechanical power and short power, they both are equal, so system is in steady state, and this machine is operating at a constant rotor angle delta naught. So in this problem we are saying that suddenly the load is 50 megawatt, and for this 50 megawatt we are suddenly increasing the mechanical power to 80 megawatt, means from 50 to 80 megawatt. So obviously this power is more than this power, mechanical power is more, or short power is more than electrical power. So there is a accelerating power, net accelerating power is 80 minus 50, so it is a 30 megawatt accelerating power is available. Obviously rotor angle will increase and the rotor will accelerate. Okay, and the third point is, if the acceleration calculated in part B, in this part we are calculating a rotor acceleration. If this rotor acceleration that is calculated in part B, it is maintained for 10 cycles. 10 cycles means we have a 50 hertz this machine. So one cycle means 1 by 50 hertz time. So time for one cycle will be 1 by 50, and time for 10 cycles will be 1 by 50 multiplied by 10, means 1 by 5, which is equal to 0.2 seconds. So if the acceleration is maintained for 10 cycles, that is 0.2 seconds, what are we required told to calculate? We are told to calculate the change in torque angle delta, means you have to calculate delta now, and rotor speed in RPM, because rotor will accelerate for continuously 10 cycles, it is accelerating. So after 10 cycles we have to calculate what is the new rotor speed and what is the torque angle at the end of 10 cycles. Okay, so what is given to us? Number of poles, machine rating, I will denote it by S in MVA, and H 8 megajoule per MVA. You know that I will repeat some basic formulas. That is, H is equal to stored kinetic energy at synchronous speed divided by rating of machine in MVA. What was stored kinetic energy in, at synchronous speed? Nothing, 1 by 2 into J, moment of inertia, into synchronous speed square, 1 by 2 J omega Sm square. Okay, divided by S. This is H. We also know that J into omega S, it is nothing but M, inertia constant M. So I can write this formula: H is equal to 1 upon 2 m into omega sm divided by s, because I know that j into omega sm is equal to nothing but m. So what will be the formula for m? M will be equal to twice h into rating of the machine divided by the synchronous speed. Okay. So simply I will calculate first the stored kinetic energy from this formula. Stored kinetic energy is nothing but h multiplied by rating of machine in MVA. So kinetic energy is S multiplied by rating of machine in MVA, which is equal to 100 is the S rating of the machine multiplied by H 8, which is equal to 800 megajoule. So kinetic energy stored at synchronous speed is 800 megajoule at synchronous speed. At another speed it will be different. Okay. Now I told you that m constant is equal to 2 into S into H divided by omega sm. So m will be 4 by 45 megajoule second per electrical degrees. Okay. So what I'm in the second part, we are saying that suddenly we are increasing the shaft power to 80 newtons. Okay. 80 megawatt for an electrical load of 50 megawatts. So what is the accelerating power? P shaft minus P electrical, or P mechanical minus P electrical, it is 30 megawatt. Obviously we have some accelerating power, and this accelerating power is positive. So rotor speed will increase. Once rotor speed will increase, delta will increase. Okay. So using this formula, m into d square delta upon dt square is equal to P shaft minus P electrical is equal to 30 megawatt. So from this equation, I can calculate d square delta, because what is acceleration? We know delta is the rotor angle. So rotor velocity is d delta by dt is the rotor velocity, rate of change of rotor angle. Now d square delta by dt square, it is nothing but rotor acceleration. So rotor acceleration, from this formula I can calculate. Rotor acceleration will be P shaft minus P electrical is 30 divided by m. M is 4 by 45. So 4 here and 45 will get multiplied by the numerator. I will get this angular acceleration will be equal to 333.7 electrical degrees per second square. So remember, it is in electrical degrees per second square. So that's what I am writing here. D square delta by dt square is nothing but angular acceleration. So alpha is nothing but 337.5 electrical degrees per second square. So we are saying that the acceleration, what was the question problem? The problem was if the acceleration calculated is maintained for 10 cycles, find change in torque angle and rotor speed. So 10 cycles. So in 1 second we have 50 cycles. Okay. So time for 50 cycles is equal to 1 second. So time for 10 cycles will be 1 by 50 multiplied by 10 is equal to 0.2 seconds. Now I have to calculate the change in the rotor angle delta. Now change in rotor angle delta is nothing but double integral of this angular acceleration. Okay. So because this change in rotor angle is nothing but torque angle. So if you will double integrate, you will get 333.5 multiplied by t square by 2. So after 10 cycles, what will be the delta? It will depend upon what will be the time here after 10 cycles. So time for 10 cycle is 0.2 seconds. So all delta at the end of 10 cycle, that is 0.2 second, will be 337.5 multiplied by 2 square divided 0.2 multiplied by 0.2 square divided by 2. So change in delta is 6.75 electrical degrees. So what we are told to calculate, we calculated the kinetic energy, we calculated this angular acceleration, we calculated the change in torque angle after 10 cycles if this acceleration was maintained for 10 cycles. Now we have to calculate the rotor speed. So you know what was angular acceleration in electrical degrees per second square? It was angular acceleration in electrical degrees per second square was 333.7. So I will convert this electrical degrees into per second square into RPM per second. You know, this is electrical degrees and we have a 4-pole machine. So this we have to convert this electrical degrees into mechanical. So 4-pole machine. So how will you convert it? It will be simply 337.5 divided by 2 into 360 multiplied by 60. Okay. So what will be alpha in RPM per second? Alpha in RPM per second will be 28.125. Okay. 28.125 is the revolution per minute per second. Now what we have to calculate? We have to calculate the rotor speed. Rotor speed after 10 cycles. So what is the actual rotor speed at synchronous speed? It is nothing but 120 F by P. This is synchronous speed. So because of the increase in shaft power, this speed increases. So increase in speed, how much speed increases, it will depend upon this angular acceleration and the time for which this acceleration is applied or maintained. So initial speed is 120 f/p, which is nothing but 1500, and increase in speed is nothing but alpha multiplied by time. Okay, you know that acceleration multiplied by time will give you velocity. Okay, so this is increase in speed. So increase in speed comes out to be 5.625. So the new speed of the rotor will be 1500 plus 5.625, because this is the actual initial speed, this is the increase in speed. The total speed will be the sum of two. It will be 1500 5.625 rpm. Okay, so let us solve the journal problem, which is a bit lengthy but important from exam point of view, from competitive exam point of view, from university exam point of view, okay, from gate point of view. So what is the problem? The problem is like that. Machine shown in figure. Let me show you the figure first. Where is the figure? Okay, figure is on the back side of this page. Okay, I will show you. Machine shown in the figure is delivering 1 per unit power, and both the terminal voltage and infinite bus voltage is 1 per unit. So here is the figure. You have a machine here. It is the transient reactance of the generator. Okay, this is the reactance of the transformer that is in between the generator and this transmission line. So we have two parallel transmission lines, each of this reactance 0.4, and then we have another machine here where the voltage across this machine is 1 angle 0. Okay, so here it is given that is delivering 1 per unit power, means electrical power is 1, and both the terminal voltage and infinite bus voltage is 1 per unit. Infinite bus voltage means this voltage is 1 per unit. What is the voltage at infinite bus? We say that voltage at infinite bus is nothing but magnitude is equal to 1 and angle is equal to 0. This is the terminal voltage of the machine. Terminal voltage means at this point, because we are representing the transient stability or power system stability. We are representing the machine by a transient voltage source in series with a transient reactance. So this is the voltage source, okay, in series with the transient reactance. So this whole representation, we said this is the machine, and this is the terminal voltage across the machine, this VT angle delta T1. Okay, so what is the reactance of the line from the terminal of the machine to this point? I am showing it by XT1. And what is the whole reactance of the system from this point to this point? I am showing it by XT. Okay, so transient reactance of generator is 0.2. Okay, determine the power angle equation. Critical clearing time. Critical clearing time means maximum time at which we have to clear the fault. If we will clear the fault after the critical clearing time or critical clearing angle, the system will lose stability, the system will lose synchronism. So we have to calculate critical clearing time and critical clearing angle. Critical clearing angle means angle after which, if the fault is cleared, reserve angle at which, if the fault is clear, reserve area becomes equal to 0. Okay, so that is delta CR, critical clearing angle. For in which condition we have to calculate if a fault occurs somewhere in the middle of one of the lines, and we are given that H is 5. So it is given that we have to calculate delta CR when a fault occurs somewhere in the middle of the line, either this line or this line. I am taking this line. I am saying that the fault occurs exactly in the middle of the line. So 0.2 J reactance will be on this side and 0.2 J reactance will be on this side. Before that, let us do some simple calculations. What is XT total? If you see the circuit, XT is from this point to this point. It is nothing but 4 parallel 4, they are in parallel, plus 0.1 J plus 0.2 J. Okay, so it is 0.5 per unit. What is the reactance from this point to this point, XT1? 4 parallel 4 plus 1. 4 parallel 4, 0.4 parallel 0.4 plus 0.1, it is 0.3 per unit. So what is the electrical power delivered from this point? Okay, from this to this, how much power is flowing? We are saying it will depend upon VT, magnitude of VT into magnitude of V into sine of delta divided by XT1. Magnitude of VT is 1 because it is given to us that the terminal voltage and infinite bus voltage is 1 per unit. Okay, so this voltage VT magnitude is 1 and this voltage magnitude is 1. So 1 multiplied by 1, what is XT1? XT1 is 0.3, this is 0.3. into sine delta T1. This is voltage angle is sine delta T1. Here voltage angle is 0, so sine delta T1. So what will be electrical power? And we also know that this electrical power, it is delivering 1 per unit power. So I'm saying that electrical power is 1 given. So what will be sine delta 1? Sine delta 1 here, put electrical power is equal to 1. Sine delta 1 will be nothing but 0.03. If you will take the sine inverse, so you will get delta 1 or delta T1 is equal to 17.45. So angle here, it is 17.45. It is, I am representing it by delta T1. It is 17.45 electrical degrees. So if you know the voltage is 1 and you know the angle at this place, you also know the voltage, magnitude and angle at this point. Can you calculate the current that is flowing in this circuit? It will be simply this voltage minus this voltage divided by this reactance. Okay, this reactance. So what will be the current? Vt angle Vt1 minus V angle 0 divided by 0.3J. So it will be 1.01 angle 8.725. You put Vt equal to this and V angle 0 is equal to 1 angle 0 divided by 0.3J. You will get I is equal to 1.01 angle 8.725. So once you calculated current that is flowing here, can you calculate this voltage EI angle delta? Simply by using Ohm's law, voltage at or KVL, voltage at this point is nothing but voltage at this point plus drop is in this point, in this reactance. So voltage at this point is nothing but EI angle delta and voltage at this point is nothing but Vt angle delta Ti. So EI angle delta will be nothing but Vt angle delta Ti plus drop in this reactance, which is nothing but the current we calculated multiplied by the reactance, this reactance XD dash. So I am calculating EI angle delta is equal to I multiplied by 0.2J plus Vt angle delta Ti. So here I calculated that EI angle delta is 1.049 angle 28.41. Okay. So I can write here PE, electrical point at this point, PE is equal to P max sine delta. Earlier I calculated delta at this point. Now I am taking delta at this. Okay, because at this point delta is different. So PE is equal to P max sine delta. P max is nothing but EI into V divided by X total now. So EI is what? 1.049 magnitude. Magnitude of V is 1. Sine delta divided by what is XT total from this point to this point, it is 0.5. So I calculated that my electrical power is 2.1 sine delta, which is equal to P max sine delta. From here I can get P max before fault is 2.1. Before fault, because I am not assuming fault anywhere in the circuit right now. So P max before fault will be 2.1, because P electrical before fault I am writing as 2.1 sine delta. So it will be P max before fault 2.1 sine delta. So I can show it here. Also you know that P is equal to P max sine delta is equal to 2.1 sine delta. So I am saying this is my shaft power, and shaft power P shaft is equal to 1 and P electrical is equal to 2.1 sine delta. This is before fault case. So at this point you see that electrical power and mechanical power, they both are equal. This is electrical power, this is mechanical power. They both are intersecting and they are equal at this point. So P shaft is equal to 1, because we know that initially this was delivering, machine was delivering 1 per unit power. So P shaft is also equal to 1 at this point. So I am saying at any point delta is equal to delta naught. P electrical is equal to P shaft and delta is equal to delta naught. And we calculated delta naught is nothing but angle, this angle 28.41. So if you will substitute this 28.41 here, you will get PE equal to 1 in this equation. If you will put delta naught is equal to 28.41, you will get PE equal to 1. So if PE is equal to 1, which is equal to shaft power at this point, so what will be the accelerating power? Accelerating power will be equal to 0. Okay. If accelerating power will be equal to 0, then means rotor will not accelerate as long as rotor will not change its position as long as rotor will not change its velocity as long as there is no disturbance in the system. Once there is any disturbance, then delta will change. Okay. So this swing equation before fault will be H upon pi f d square delta upon dt square is equal to 1, which is equal to P shaft minus 2.1 sine delta naught. and at this point delta naught is equal to 28.41. If I will substitute here, so this term will be equal to 1 minus 1 will be equal to 0. So d delta by dt will be equal to 0. So rate of change of delta will be 0. Okay. Now suppose I am saying that a fault occurs at midpoint in one of the line. If a fault occurs, then this equation will change because it will not remain 2.1 sine delta, because the line reactance will change, system reactance will change. I will show you how. So this is the system. This was 0.2J XD dash. This is 0.1J transformer reactance. I calculated what is EI angle delta. It is 1.049 angle 28.41. This is infinite bus 1 angle 0 delta. Voltage of this reactance of this line is 0.4J, and I am saying a fault occurs exactly in the middle of this line. Okay, so dividing this line into this reactance into 2, 0.2J reactance will be on this side and 0.2J reactance will be on this side of the fault. So this circuit I can again draw here, but instead of this reactance I will show admittance. So if 0.2J is the reactance, admittance will be nothing but 1 divided by 0.2J, which is equal to minus 5J. Okay, so here I am showing a reactance diagram. What I am doing, I am adding 0.21 and 0.2, it will be 0.3J. So taking the reciprocal of that, I will get minus 3.33J. It will be minus 5J, minus 5J, minus 2.5J. If I will be, actually this point is short. This point and this point, they are at the same potential. So I can represent this reactance, it is directly connected to this ground, and this reactance, it is also directly connected to this ground, which is shown here. 5J, minus 5J, minus 2.5J, minus 3.33J. So I am writing this is node 1, this is node 3, and this is node 2. Node 1, node 3, and node 2. So what will be the reduced bus admittance matrix of this network? Sorry, complete bus admittance matrix of this network. Y bus I'm saying. So Y bus will be minus 3.33J 0, 3.33J 0, minus 7.25J, 2.5J, 3.33J, 2.5J, minus 10.833J. Okay, so you know that I is equal to YV. So I'm taking a case where I have 3 nodes, okay, so, or 3 buses, but I have sources at 2 buses, means current injection is only at 2 buses, that is bus 1 and bus 2, whereas at bus 3 I don't have any source. So what will happen in certain cases, maybe we have a 3 machine 10 bus system. So 3 machine 10 bus system means Y bus Y will be 10 cross 10. Okay, but in I will be a single column matrix with 3 rows. Okay, so then the complexity will increase. You have to multiply 10 terms. Okay, it will give you, I will be represented in terms of 10 terms. Okay, so to reduce that complexity, what we do, we use a method that is called Cron's reduction. Cron's reduction. This is also called as node elimination. What we do, we reduce this bus admittance matrix to a order depending upon how many buses or how many sources are there in the system. If we are having 3 machines, so we will reduce this Y from 10 cross 10 to 3 cross 3. And this Y reduce, it will give the same effect, same value of current, which will be given by the Y actual. Okay, so what I am doing, I am saying I have 2 machines here. So I am saying I will convert this 3 cross 3 during fault matrix into a reduced during fault matrix, 2 cross 2 matrix. So how it is done, I am saying I have 2 machines. So I will partition it like this. I have shown it in a dotted manner here. I will say this is one matrix, this is another matrix, this is another matrix, and this is another matrix, 4 matrices. I am naming this as K, this L. So what will be this? You can see if this matrix is nothing but transpose of this matrix. So I will represent this by L transpose and this by M. Okay. So what I am doing here, I am representing it by K, L, L transpose and M. Now instead of using this 3 cross 3 matrix, I will use a 2 cross 2 matrix. Okay. So I am using reduced, and formula for that is Y reduced during fault will be K minus L M inverse L transpose. So here I am calculating K minus L into M inverse into L transpose. So this is giving me Y reduced during fault matrix, which is a 2 cross 2. You can use 3 cross 3 also, but in certain cases, this is a simple problem where we are taking 2 machine 3 bus system. Maybe you have a 3 machine 10 bus system, then Y will be 10 cross 10. Okay, so calculations will not be that much easy. To reduce that complexity, I am taking the advantage of reduced bus admittance matrix. So this is Y reduced during fault. So tell me what is the Y12 element of this matrix. Y12 is nothing but 0.768. So Y reduced 12 during fault is 0.768. So X12, Y12, instead of, I know X, we were taking EV divided by X. Pmax was equal to EV divided by X. So X is nothing but Y, reciprocal of Y. So we can take E into V into Y. Instead of taking X in the denominator, we will take Y in the numerator. So what is Y12? But Y12 is nothing but 0.768. So I can take P max during fault as EI into V into Y reduced 12 during fault. Okay, so it is 1.049 multiplied by 1, and Y reduced during fault is Y reduced 12 during fault is 0.768. It is 0.8056 per unit. So what will be the P electrical during fault? It will be 0.8056 sine delta per unit. So P maximum will be 0.8056, whereas P maximum before fault it was 2.1. So you see P maximum will reduce. Okay. Here P maximum was 2.1 sine delta. Okay, we are saying at delta is equal to delta naught, a fault occurs in the system. Because of that, the electrical power will reduce. But electrical power will not reduce to zero, because you know we have one more circuit here. If this is a faulty circuit and we have some impedance in the circuit, okay, so some power will flow through this circuit as well. Okay, so electrical power will not become zero. But if we have a fault somewhere at the bus, then electrical power will become zero. So what I am saying is electrical power, it will not reduce to zero. You can see it from here. I am saying PE during fault is 0.8056 sine delta. Okay. So when delta is equal to delta naught, what was PE during fault? PE during fault was 0.383. When delta is equal to delta naught, PE during fault, delta is equal to delta naught means 28.41. So this PE during fault was 0.383, means this will reduce from 1 to 0.383. Okay. So before that, let me tell you that PE before fault was 2.1 sine delta. PE during fault is 0.8056 sine delta. So swing equation during fault will be H divided by pi f d square delta by dt square is equal to 1 minus 0.8056 sine delta. So as you see that maximum value of PE electrical power during fault is 0.8056, which is less than 1. So maximum value means when delta was equal to 90, this is delta is equal to 90, maximum value will be here, and this value is 0.8056, which should be, and this is 1. So obviously it should be below this. So the curve will go like this. Okay. So what will be the value of the P, this electrical at delta is equal to delta naught? It will be 0.8056 into sine delta naught. What is delta naught? 28.41. So P electrical during fault will be 0.383, which is this point. So I am saying when a fault occurs in the system, electrical at delta is equal to delta naught, electrical power comes out to be 0.383, and shaft power is still 1. At this point you can see electrical power is 0.8383, but shaft power is 1. So there is some accelerating power, which is nothing but P shaft minus P electrical. P shaft is 1 minus P electrical during fault, which is equal to 0.616 per unit. You can see accelerating power is positive. So what will happen? Delta will increase. Delta will increase means the curve will move in this direction. I have shown arrows here. So delta will increase because rotor will accelerate, and rotor acceleration is given by alpha is equal to d square delta upon dt square. Okay, so d square delta upon dt square, if you will calculate what is the accelerating power, it will be given by P shaft minus P electrical divided by H. Okay, so P shaft minus P electrical is 0.616 divided by H into pi into F. Okay, so it is coming out to be 22.17 F electrical degrees per second square. This is the angular acceleration during fault. Now I am saying that after some time I am removing the fault. I am removing the fault at a time when there will be no reserve area in the system. Okay, so when I am removing the fault, how I will remove the fault? I will remove the fault is in this line. I am removing this line out of the circuit. I have circuit breakers. I will open the circuit breakers, close this, open the circuit breaker, and this line will be taken off from the circuit. Means it is not electrically, it is not there. So what is now the reactance of the line? Reactance of the line is 0.3 plus 0.4, 0.7 J. Okay, this is after fault. Okay, so P max after fault will be E into V divided by XT after fault. Total reactance after fault. It will 1.049 multiplied by 1 divided by 0.7. So P max after fault will be 1.4985, which I am taking roughly around 1.5. Okay. So if you can see, before fault it was 2.1 P max. After fault P max was 0.8056. And during fault, and after fault P max comes out to be 1.5. 1.5 means it will be above this P shaft line, because P shaft is equal to 1. It will be above this P shaft line. Okay, so where I am showing it, I am showing it in the next diagram. Here I am showing that delta increased continuously, and at this point I am saying when delta is equal to delta C R, I am removing the fault and electrical power increases from this to this point. Okay, so this is the maximum point where maximum power will be there, P electrical maximum after fault, which is equal to 1.5. So this is 1.5 sine delta curve, this is 2.1 sine delta curve, and this is 0.808 sine delta curve. This is before fault, this is during fault, and this is after fault curve. Okay, so you can see this after fault curve, 1.5 sine delta curve, it is cutting this P shaft curve at this point. I am saying at this point I am taking delta is equal to delta 1. Okay, so and what will be delta at this point? I am saying it is delta max, because now we are moving on this curve. We are not moving on this curve. We are moving on this curve here. Okay, so maximum up to maximum we can go up to this point. If we will increase delta beyond this point, then system will lose synchronism. It will become unstable. So what is this point? I am saying it is delta max, and this point it is delta 1. Okay, so I have shown here that P electrical before fault, during fault, after fault. So swing equation before fault, during fault, and after fault. Now we are saying that what is the area under the shaft power? Area under the shaft power is this. Listen carefully. This area. Okay. Sorry, we cannot include this area because power is not reducing to 0. Area under the shaft power is this point. Then from this point to this point, then from this point to this point, and then this point. Got it? I will again repeat. From this point to this, to this, to this, and then this is the area under the shaft power. What is the area under the electrical power? Area under the electrical power is this. We will move from this point to this point, then this point, then this point, and then again back this point. So what is the common area? This area is the common area. I will write here. So this area, it is the common area. It will get subtracted. So I am saying when this area will become this area, then we will say that this angle is called as the critical clearing angle. And when we are clearing the angle at this point, we know that the curve will not move beyond this point. Okay, where delta is equal to delta max. Okay, so I'm saying this area A1 and this area A2, so both the areas should be equal. Okay, so at delta is equal to delta 1, please see, at delta is equal to delta 1, because we know what is delta naught. Okay, we know the value of delta 28.49, but we have to calculate delta max as well. Okay, then only we will be able to calculate delta CR. So for calculating delta max, we should know what is delta 1. Listen, please see carefully. At delta 1, what is this? The electrical power after fault electrical power curve. At delta is equal to, what is the value of this? That means at this point, what is the value of this electrical power? Same as shaft power, which is 1. Okay, so we know that at this point shaft power is 1 and electrical power, they both are equal to 1. So I can write 1.5 sine delta 1, because this is the point delta 1 now, where electrical power is equal to shaft power and shaft power is equal to 1. So 1.5 sine delta 1 is equal to shaft power, which is equal to 1. So which is equal to 1. So sine delta 1 will be equal to 1 by 1.5, and I can calculate delta 1 from here. It comes out to be 41.81. This is 41.81. Okay, so simply I will show it like here. It is this. I am saying this is pi, this is 0, this is x, what will be this angle? It will be simply pi minus x. So if it's 41, what will be delta max? Delta max will be 180 minus delta 1. 180 minus 41, it will be 138.189. So I got the value of delta max. I got the value of delta naught. Okay. Now I have to calculate delta CR. For that I am saying both the areas should be equal. So what is area 1? What is area 1? This is area 1. Area 1 is nothing but P shaft multiplied by delta CR minus delta naught. Okay. Means this multiplied by this, it is the P shaft area. Okay. So I have to subtract this much area from this. This is the electrical area, means this much electrical power I was supplying. So I have to subtract this area. So what is this area? This area is nothing but integral of this curve. Which curve? 0.808 sine delta curve. From, and integration starts from delta naught to delta CR. From delta naught to delta CR 0.808 sine delta. Okay. D delta. This is area 1. What is area 2? Listen carefully. Area 2 starts from delta CR to delta max. Delta CR to delta max. And this curve is 1.5 sine delta curve minus which area? Minus this area. Okay. So it is delta CR from area 2 is delta CR to delta max 1.5 sine delta minus this area. It is P shaft into this P shaft into delta max minus delta CR. So these areas should be equal. So I am equating these two areas here. Page number 9. So I am equating these two areas here. And I am getting the value of delta CR as 0.0121 radians. So this cos delta is equal to 0.121. So delta CR from this I can calculate, it is 83.02 electrical degrees. So converting this electrical degrees into electrical radians, I got the value of delta CR is equal to 1.448 electrical radians. Okay, so this is the angle. If fault is not cleared before this angle delta CR, then the system will lose synchronism and the system will become unstable and delta will increase continuously. Okay, now we have calculated the delta CR critical clearing angle. Now we have to calculate the time. After how much time should we remove the fault from the system so that delta becomes equal to delta CR. Okay, so that time is called as critical clearing time. The time related to the critical time to clear the fault at critical clearing time is called as the critical clearing angle. And the formula for critical clearing is 4H divided by omega S into P shaft delta CR minus delta naught. Converting delta into radians and delta naught into radians and applying the formula here, I got the value of the critical clearing time as 0.22 seconds. So 0.22 seconds. Maybe the examiner may ask you, okay, after how many cycles will the fault be removed? So will the fault be removed after 2 cycles, 3 cycles, 5 cycles, 10 cycles, 20 cycles? What, after how much time the fault will be relieved? What it means, after how many cycles the fault will be removed? Okay. Simply number of cycles to clear the fault is given by nothing but frequency at which the system is operating multiplied by the critical clearing time. Okay, because you know in 50 cycles is equal to 1 second. Okay, so you have to calculate the number of cycles. So one cycle will be completed in 1 by 50 seconds. Okay, or you can do like this, in 1 second 50 cycles. And 1 cycle there will be 50 cycles. How many cycles will be there in 10 seconds? 50 multiplied by 10. Okay, so how many cycles will there be in 0.1 second? 50 multiplied by 0.1. Okay, simply therefore the number of cycles after which the faults will be cleared, it will be critical clearing time multiplied by the frequency of the system. We are assuming that the frequency is 60 Hz. So critical clearing time 0.224 second multiplied by the frequency 60. So the number of cycles come out to be 13.22 cycles. Means after 13 cycles the fault will be removed from the system. Okay, so this is how we calculated the PE curve before fault and during fault which is less than the short for and after fault. And this is how we calculate the critical clearing angle. Okay, thank you very much.